President Biden's campaign team slammed Donald Trump and his allies while touting the executive actions on the border announced by President Biden today. A spokesperson for his campaign is accusing the former president and MAGA Republicans of choosing, quote, chaos and partisan politics over fixing the immigration system. He also blamed Trump for the recent failure of the, quote, strongest bipartisan border bill in a generation. David Weigel is a politics reporter for Semafor, and Sabrina Rodriguez is a national politics reporter for The Washington Post. Thank you both for being here today. So, Sabrina, President Biden has expressed frustration for so many months now against Senate Republicans, saying that they are playing politics and they are to blame for blocking this border bill. There's still a big question, though, about why today was the day he chose to announce these executive actions. Do you have any insight?
I mean, that is the million-dollar question. We've seen since day one of the Biden administration, we have seen him dealing with criticism repeatedly from Donald Trump and from Republicans on the issue of immigration. I mean, right now, Dave and I were just talking about that, the border crossings at this time of the year are actually down. So if we're talking about a period where there are tons of border crossings happening, now is not that time. But it's no question, we have the election this year, months away. We've seen that the president has been on defense on this issue in recent months. He's really been trying to drive home the point that he's been limited in what he can do because Republicans in Congress were not willing to get on board with that bipartisan-backed bill that he was supporting. So this is sort of that step of him saying, I'm taking action. It's clear this is aimed towards independent voters who in polling we see, support Donald Trump more and trust him more on issues around immigration and the border. But it is an open question what the effect will be, because we've already seen Republicans coming out and saying it's too little, too late. Why did he wait until now to do this?
And David, we're not just talking about the measures today. We're talking about the fact that Biden is blaming Republicans by design because he wants to repeat that message. Do you think it's effective for him to slam Republicans, slam Donald Trump while he is trying to show everything he is doing to make a difference at the border?
Well, Democrats think they made a little bit of progress. They were trailing badly on immigration. They were trailing badly against Republicans late last year. They've been trailing throughout his presidency. And Republicans are winning in one important way, which they've got the president to move back on a 2020 campaign promise. He and every Democrat running in 2020 said they were going to restore Obama-era asylum policies. They were going to undo what Trump did. You saw in the interview with Time magazine, the president was saying he wouldn't have reversed anything he did in the first week of his presidency. The Republican ask is reverse everything you did in the first week of your presidency. Return to every Trump policy. And Biden's actually meeting them part of the way, saying, I am reversing a thing I ran on, a thing that I told immigration groups, I told progressive Democrats I would do. I'm going to deny some legitimate asylum seekers access to the country. He's going to anger the left. That's already happened in a way that didn't with the immigration bill. He is, I think, making some incremental gains with voters paying close attention. But I don't know if that balance is going to work for him.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, according to one of our CBS News polls, voters in both Arizona and Florida said that recent immigrants have made life in their state worse.
Right.
Are these executive actions going to make any difference to change those minds, or is it too little, too late?
Well, one thing they're reacting to is stories that Republicans talk about, the way they wouldn't have 10 years ago, of crime committed by people in the country illegally. They have the Lake and Riley example, but there's examples of this every time it bubbles up from local news. Republicans talk about that. They talk about pressure on social services, all those things. I don't think that is ended by this executive order.
No, and I mean, that's the reality, is something, this has been years coming. This has been, Republican governors sending migrants to large major cities. I mean, the question around social services, the question around what is going on in cities, whether it's been misplaced blame of, rises in crime because of this. I mean, this is something Republicans have talked about incessantly over the past 4 years. So it's not like one executive action that the president does today is suddenly going to reverse years of this rhetoric that people have been listening to.
Well, of course, the former president is weighing in. I want to play a little bit of what Trump has to say about today's executive actions and get back to you on the other side.
Crooked Joe Biden is pretending to finally do something about the border, but in fact, it's all about show because He knows we have a debate coming up in 3 weeks. The truth is that Joe Biden's executive order won't stop the invasion. It's weak and it's pathetic. It will actually make the invasion worse. Millions of people a year will continue to pour across our border and be released into our country.
I feel like I just watched a tease for the debate that's going to happen in 3.5 weeks. I mean, how much of the timing of today has to do with the fact that they are meeting face to face?
It's no question that this is a part of the calculus. You know, again, we have the election 5 months from now. We're going to see them meeting Republicans. You know, it's not just Donald Trump. I mean, down the ballot, Senate candidates, House candidates, the ads that we see being run by Republicans largely focus on this perception of an invasion, of chaos at the border. So it's clear that Biden is trying to disarm him, trying to say, look, I am stepping up and doing something. But we're still going to see that rhetoric from Trump. I mean, there's no question between now and November, Trump will still be talking about the border and this perception of chaos that he feels that Biden hasn't handled.
Yes, this is, again, just not a good issue for Joe Biden because of the way the country's mood has changed. You cited that polling. This is something I see across the country. Voters who changed their minds after 2000 because of what they saw as the impact of asylum seekers on their communities, on public services. You've seen this in New York especially. I think there's been most media attention in New York. Chicago, too. Communities that voted for Joe Biden that are angry and in many places misplacing blame on some service cuts on migrants who are being serviced, or saying they don't want a center processing migrants to be put in their community. That, again, there's nothing Biden could do right now to reverse that. He couldn't do it politically inside his party. And so but I don't know what they can do to dismantle that issue for Trump ahead of the debate.
Well, there's a lot of anger and a lot of blame going around today, and I wish we could talk about it more, but we have to leave it there. Sabrina Rodriguez and David Weigel, thank you so much for spending some time with us.